sure you know our names. Adonis Finest, the podcast, oh so fly. We stay on our grind, aiming high like diamonds. We shine, inspiring the master, motivation and elevation. Breaking down all classes, teaching religion. We can show you never fall with a helping hand. We rise from the crawl, from the bottom to the top. Wanna be stopped. Say no to doubt, say no to fear. Pushing boundaries, making it clear. You've got the power, you're a pioneer. Unstoppable in control, have no fear. Adonis Finest, oh, we're on a mission. Breaking molds, creating waves, no inhibition. We're the podcast that's here to inspire. With our words, we'll set your dreams on
Hi, ladies and gentlemen, Andre Goolsby back at you once again for another exciting episode of Adonis Finest. It's so exciting to me because I'm with the company Moremito. We just interviewed Roger Hill, CEO of Moremito, and Dr. Bevan Elliott, the research development scientist. And there's no need for me to even be in the same screen with them. The interview is amazing. The products and technology is amazing. And you're looking forward to something
Have you
exciting.
ever wondered
Join us.
if it was possible for you to be healthier, feel better, be more effective, be happier than you are right now? I did. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of mitochondria? Yes, no, maybe so? Okay. Mitochondria is that part of your cell that produces the energy that your body runs on. Okay? Mitochondria is responsible for everything that has to do with your health, because everything that has to do with your health takes energy, and that's where it comes from. Let me tell you how critical this is. If all the mitochondria in your body right now were to stop working, your brain would stop working, your heart would stop working, everything would stop working, and you would die. Okay? My name is Roger Hill. I'm CEO of a company called Moremito. And at Moremito, for the last 10 years, along with my partner, Dr. Bevan Elliott, we've been focused on helping people with their wellness by providing them the technology that they need to regrow their mitochondria. Okay? So let me tell you a little story about yours. You started out with a lot of it. When you were a kid, you remember then, that's when you had all that energy, you hardly knew what to do with it. You ran, you jumped, you played, your mama had to tell you to sit down, stop running through the house, all of that, right? But as you know, later on in life, not so much. By the time you get to be 60, you probably lost half your mitochondria. And let me tell you what happened along the way that caused this to be the case. The diseases you encountered. If you had COVID, you lost some mitochondria, probably didn't get them all back. If you've had high blood pressure, diabetes, any host of diseases damage and exhaust mitochondria. Medications, as good as they are for helping you get well, many of them kill mitochondria too. If you've ever, for example, had an antibiotic, most of us have, well, mitochondria are a biotic. It kills mitochondria, okay? Now, with all that going on, that's why you have that loss of mitochondria, half of it probably by the time you're 60, by the time you're 80 and 90, down to 5 or 10%. Now, let's reflect on what was going on while that was happening. A lot of people don't see as well, right? Maybe you're nearsighted, you're farsighted, you can't read fine print as well. Or maybe you're having issues with your night vision, loss of mitochondria. Mitochondria have the highest concentration in your major organs. They have to, because they take a lot of power. Let's take your brain, for example. Are you remembering things as well as you used to? Right? Many of us, we lose it a little bit as we get older, right? How about your strength and stamina? If you're about 45 or 50 or so, you've probably figured out already that you're not a spring chicken anymore, right? Right? We all kind of know that. Loss of mitochondria. You don't have that energy you did once upon a time, okay? And what about your immune system? It's supposed to protect you from everything that assails you. Except if you've lost 50% or more, let's say, of your mitochondria, how can it possibly do as good a job? It can't. Now, let's reverse that. Let's suppose the technology existed to regrow your mitochondria, put that back. What might that do for you? Which one of your health concerns might you want your mitochondria to help you get back? Our company is dedicated to giving you the answer to that question. In my technical career, I worked at NASA during the space program. I was recruited from there to go work at the Pentagon. So I had an opportunity to see technology operate at the highest level. And that's what prepared me to work with my future partner, Dr. Bevan Elliott. I'm Roger Hill, CEO of Moremito. I'm joined by my partner since 2015, Dr. Bevan Elliott, who is also our Chief of Research at Moremito. So, Bevan, we've been having this conversation for a long time, but I want to reflect on when we started. You know, I meet you at a previous project, and we start talking about mitochondria. And two things you said to me, I'll never forget. The first thing was that you wanted to help people die of old age and not disease. I had to think about that. And the other thing was, your health goes through your mitochondria.
Right.
So in addition to what you were sharing, I started doing my own research. And I learned that everybody starts out with a lot of mitochondria. Okay, unless you're born with a mitochondrial deficiency, which some people are. But normally you have a lot of mitochondria, but you lose them as you go through life. By the time you're 60, you probably lost half of them, right?
Right.
And so that creates a problem, because it's obvious to me once I learned this that nothing works better on half the energy or less.
Right.
Okay? But if you would, talk about what motivated you to go down this path to begin with, researching mitochondria. You've been at it several years before you met me.
Right. Yeah. So in high school biology, you learned that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. And you might not learn or remember anything else about high school biology except for that. And really what that's talking about is that the engine, the generator of the energy in your body are mitochondria. So mitochondria is plural for a mitochondrion. And in each cell of your body, depending on the cell type, you may have a few, you might have hundreds. But you have these energy generation power plants inside each cell that are absolutely essential for generating all of the energy that your body needs for metabolism. We generally think of metabolism as just an extension of diet. How quickly do you burn your food, your fuel that you put in your body? But it's a lot more than that, because mitochondria really drive every process of your biology in your body. So starting from high school biology and going from there, as you grow up, you realize everyone has a gimmick for health. You've got a medicine for this condition, a medicine for that condition. And as I was looking at these things, whether it's in the natural world of natural health or whether it's in the medical world with pharmaceuticals, everyone has something for something. And I'm the type of person that I want to dig in. I want to get to what's the cause of the cause of the cause. How far can I go to determine what's the most important thing? So I looked at various supplements, how they work, and being from a chemistry background, I'm looking at the biochemistry of the body. I'm looking at pharmaceuticals, how they interact with the chemistry in the body. I'm looking at supplements and how they interact. And you have some very viral movement along the way for natural health or for medical health. And people are trying in general to treat conditions. You're allowed to do that in the medical industry. You're not allowed to do that in the supplement space. But people are going after high blood pressure, high blood sugar, heart health, lung health, kidney health, liver health, brain health, these type of body systems. And they seem to go after these diseases, dis-ease of the body. They go after conditions, but conditions are caused by something. Yeah. Conditions are downstream of what the root cause is. So you have a lot of people talk about anti-inflammatories. So these are substances, whether endogenous, produced in the body or outside the body, that are delivered via supplementation or pharmaceuticals that turn down chronic inflammation in the body, which cause other problems. And then you have people talk about antioxidants, which fight free radical damage in the body. And those are very deep level problems, but it goes farther than that, because those are caused by out of control mitochondrial problems. As I dug, I found that Mitochondria really, the engines of the cells are where these processes occur, either in balance or out of balance. If you have a car, and that car is beautiful on the outside, the paint is perfect, the wax is perfect. You open the door, and the interior is immaculate. It's leather. It smells wonderful. You push the buttons, and the dash lights up, and everything works wonderfully. And you say, this is wonderful. I love this car. And now I'm going to use this car and go from point A to point B. And you turn on the engine and nothing happens. And you open the hood and there's no engine in there. That vehicle is of no use to you, except as a glorified couch. The mitochondria are the engines of your body. And if the engine is not working properly, you don't go. You don't go anywhere. You don't do anything. And furthermore, if that engine is misfiring, if it's not taking in the fuel and burning it properly with the right amount of oxygen, and that's exactly what it does, just like an engine, then what happens? Then your whole body is not operating properly. You don't have the energy you should. You don't have the digestion you should. You don't have the brain power that you should. You start having these conditions that appear. And so really when you trace all of these conditions back to the source of the problem, you come up with mitochondrial dysfunction. These engines are not working properly. They're not generating the energy your body needs to do everything that it does. And it affects every body system, from your liver to your kidneys to your digestive system and to your brain, how well your brain works, and even down to the levels where you have these body systems that are starting to be known more now. The endocannabinoid system. People talk about using supplements like hemp and other substances, CBD oil. And those are incredibly important in the way that they work together with your endocrine system and with your other body systems. So these are all important, but all of these are driven at their core by proper mitochondrial function. And if that is in balance, and if your cells have the energy they need to carry out the processes that they need to have, then all of these other conditions are not going to develop over time. So if you have a child, and most children are born relatively healthy, some are not, but the majority of children that are born with problems have at their core a mitochondrial dysfunction. And so we typically see conditions happen as you get older, as the number of mitochondria in your cells and the activity of the mitochondria in your cells decrease to the point where these conditions start to appear. Your energy goes down, the conditions appear. You might have unbalanced conditions in your body, and we slow down and we become aged. And so going back to that first statement I made to you in 2015, I would like people to live their lives and be able to die of old age and not disease. What I meant by that was that if we can go to the main problem of disease in the first place and address it at its core in the mitochondria, then people will live their lives as actively as they possibly can with the energy that they can have, that they're capable of, and finally die when everything gives out, when your body's given everything it has, but your brain is still clear, and you still have some mobility, and you still have this clarity and verve for life that you've always had with your life. But eventually it's your time to go, and you've done everything you want to do, because the saddest thing is for people to still have things to accomplish, to still want to do things, but their brain doesn't work properly and their bodies break down and they can't interact with their loved ones and their friends and they can't carry out those goals that they have in life. And it's simply down to the amount of energy that you have. So really, what I had a burning desire to do was help people live the lives that they're supposed to have, to do the things they're supposed to do, and have the capability of doing that, starting with the mitochondrial energy that they're supposed to have. And then everything else works out from there.
Okay, so we're having this conversation. You are telling me this. I started also doing my own research. I come across this organization that's still around today, mitoaction.org, and they're dedicated to people who are born with mitochondrial dysfunction.
Right.
They never had enough mitochondria, right?
Right.
And so they published statistics that showed that population has more diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, Alzheimer's, ...
Right.
I recognize that. Okay. I said, this is what happens to most of us as we age and get older.
Right.
Okay. I got my Rosetta Stone.
Yes.
Okay. I've now decoded exactly where this fits in our life cycles. Right. Even if you weren't born that way with not enough mitochondria, you will end up that way.
Yes.
And what you're doing is helping people regrow that mitochondria so they can get back to healthier or more youthful levels, and maybe avoid those things so that they don't become likely consequences.
Yes.
Like people die of disease in adult age. I do the statistic, 70% was what I saw. 70% of the people are not dying of old age.
Mm-hmm.
They're dying of, again, the consequences of high blood pressure, diabetes leads to the heart disease, kidney failure, all the various organ failures and whatnot. Okay. Now, you're way upstream from that.
Right.
You're wanting to make mitochondria more numerous, healthier, and then hopefully that then translates into people living a healthier life.
Yes.
And whatnot. And kind of avoiding those. So you now create some formulations.
Right.
Talk to me about the formulation process. What was your thought process as you looked at the formulation to see what you could do to help address these later consequences that we wanted people to help avoid?
Right. So the first thing is typically people who are looking for this mitochondrial boost already have some of these conditions. There are very few people that have no conditions whatsoever and feel great that are going to look for some sort of answer for their problems. So most of the people are looking for something that's going to help them, but they're generally looking for an answer to a particular condition.
Yeah.
So part of this is education as far as what these products can do. But in the formulation process, what I was looking for is, first of all, some components to it that can repair the immediate problems. So this would be cell membrane problems, because across the cell membranes you have voltages, and if those voltages break down and these transport mechanisms break down for taking in nutrients into the cells and getting out waste, then you have problems that build up. You have inflammation that builds up. You have out of control oxidants, free radical damage that occurs. So if we can repair a little bit of that, if we can shore up the problems, the immediate problems in the cells with some good nutrients, then that helps right out of the gate. And then the second thing is to feed mitochondria with nutrients that they need to build their levels of efficiency and build their levels of energy. And then finally, we want to regrow or grow more mitochondria per cell on average in the various organ systems in the body so that we can turn up those energy levels and maintain the support, maintain the healing mechanisms that the body itself is designed for. Because if your mitochondria are functioning properly, everything works well. Mm-hmm. So if we can get them over that little bump that well that they're in, that groove, that problem that they have, out of that, and then support the mechanisms that keep them out of that rut, then all of those conditions mysteriously, because their body is working properly, sort of tend to disappear. So we're not treating anything. I wanted formulations that help them repair and then maintain and then exceed the level where they were even before in the number and effectiveness of those mitochondria. So take them out of the problem and then put them on a higher ground from where they were to begin with, and watch those problems in their body kind of recede into the background. So that was the goal with the formulations. So to do that, I think you have to have the right ingredients, ingredients your body recognizes as food. Second, ingredients that help with these processes. So these are demonstrated in the literature to help either with oxidation problems or inflammatory problems, repair problems, or help the efficiency of mitochondrial processes, or help regrow mitochondria. And so I focused on those sets of ingredients. The thing about this is, though, we don't want it just to hit one point or one organ system or one type of cell line. We want it to be comprehensive across the body systems. So what I tried to do was, if you remember from school, Venn diagrams, and I always hated Venn diagrams. You draw these circles and you put whatever's in this circle over here and this circle over here, and then where do those circles have a union or overlap each other? And that's the part that's in both of these things. And you draw all these set diagrams. I hated it. But it turns out I couldn't avoid it in this case because here I am. And so you have a set of ingredients over here that does certain things. It might be really good for cellular health in the liver. And over here, you might have a set of ingredients that's really good for brain health. And over here, you might have a set of ingredients that's really good for gut health. And within those circles, what you're doing is you're saying ingredient A really is synergistic with ingredient B. And ingredient B is synergistic with ingredient C. And C is good with A, and they build on one another. And so you have this set of ingredients that really turns up the activity of these cells that you're working toward helping. And then over here, the same thing. And over here, the same thing. And what you find is through various body systems, whether it's the endocrine system, whether it's the nervous system, whether it's the endocannabinoid system, you find these ingredients begin to overlap because natural ingredients, not highly purified, in their natural matrix, are multifunctional. So ingredient A in this circle over here might be working over here in that system and in that system and in that system in a different way. And so you begin to interlock these body systems and have a comprehensive approach to helping with mitochondrial activity in each of those cell types, each of those body organ systems. And so that was kind of my approach, is take a holistic approach to really going into cellular health, particularly starting with mitochondria in all of these body systems at the same time.
Okay.
And then the second thing is improve the delivery efficiency of these ingredients. I can take, a kilogram, several pounds, if you will, of stuff and pour it into my mouth and swallow it. But if it never gets absorbed, it's just going to go right through my system and out. And it's not going to benefit me at all. It has to be used efficiently. It has to have a means of being delivered to the right place at the right time in the right way so that it can be effective.
Okay, so it's 2017, and we've had the benefit of 2 years worth of using the first generation technology, the oil and the original version of Brain and Body. Okay. I've had some amazing experiences. I like the cycle. I'm feeling that leg strength within days. I got that stamina that nothing else ever gave me. I'm sleeping like maybe one project, 6 hours in 2 days. I ride 30-some miles, wake up the next morning, didn't feel like I walked around the block. I know you got something, okay?
Yeah.
It's so plainly obvious, right? But then as we sample it out to other people, we have hundreds of people using them, get the feedback. And we saw some miracles. We saw people who couldn't read, they can read now. And, we had one of my friends who was blind get his sight back, all of that. All those things were happening. I was still seeing gaps, okay? I was still seeing some people that I wished we could have helped, or I wish we could have helped more,
Right.
okay? We sit down in Greenville, we have a meeting, there are others there, and they're not here now, okay? It's just us. And the challenge I gave you was, can you evolve this technology? I know it's pretty good, but since we're missing these people, it seems like there's something else we could do. And so by 2019, you had the second generation ready, okay? Maybe you could just characterize what the difference was. Where did that put us versus where we had been? Even though where we was great, how much better did it get in 2019 when the Restore year started?
Right. So 2019 was the beginning of, as you said, Restore. We had a form of that oil before, and we had seen some tremendous results. But up to that point, I had the delivery system built into that oil, and I had a limited set of ingredients, and I wasn't as focused on mitochondria with that oil. I was focused on anti-inflammation. I was focused on free radical damage and undoing that. And some general heart health and liver health, things of that nature. But the emphasis, as we went along and talked, became we have these other problems that we need to address, and we need to find a way to do it. And having already talked about mitochondria, we really extended that approach to what became Restore. And so we looked at how do we really go after the core problem of mitochondria with this oil with a limited set of ingredients that we can put into it to add to that functionality in such a way that it really addresses as many problems as we can without addressing problems by going to the core and then seeing what happens from there. So we had our first version of Restore, and it added things like black seed oil and the citrus oils and benfotiamine, things that were added on purpose for mitochondrial biogenesis. That is to say, growing more mitochondria, or helping with the nervous system, or helping with the endocrine system, but at a very fundamental level, and turning up the efficacy of each one of those ingredients in concert with the others so that when it hit the body, as I said, it was taken as food. And every time you develop a first generation of something, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a phone or a car or a bicycle, you really don't know how good or how bad it's going to be. You know that you want to solve a problem, and you hope that what you've done is good enough, but you also understand that there are going to be revisions from there. But you put the first generation out and you wait and see. And I think what was extremely shocking about the first version of Restore was the response.
Yeah.
In people that had problems that were so big that it was hard to say that we could help them.
Exactly.
But what we saw was people calling us and getting on the phone and saying, this is what happened to me from day one on your product.
Yeah. Let me tell you about the very first call. So this is like July, right around 4th of July, 2019.
Right.
And we had the first call. And we had this conversation many times, and you'd ask me, well, what do you think we should focus on? I said, I want to focus on what's killing us, and I want to help people mentally, physically, and emotionally. So as we're getting this feedback, I'm listening to hear, whether that's being validated.
Right.
Very first call. Lady comes on from California, says, I tried to start a fight with my husband the other day when I got this stuff, and I couldn't do it. I was just way too relaxed. I said, got that one. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And it just went on from there. We started getting all of this feedback on issues that we couldn't have anticipated that it was going to work as well as it did.
No.
But you had coded it in there, and so you had in Restore, there was they're all multifunctional, but part of them were restoring mitochondria. Others were addressing all the organ systems, like you talked about.
Right.
Then one after another, people would come in and tell us what happened as a result of that, regrowing mitochondria, then providing all those resources that now their body can really use.
Yes.
Because you've addressed those problems with the cell walls. Cells can breathe better.
Yeah.
All this stuff is happening cellularly. It just wasn't happening before.
I think that's a really good point that you just made, because the more efficient mitochondria are and effective mitochondria are, the smaller the amount of any sort of substance that they can work with to do something with. In other words, if mitochondria are operational at a very high level, then they become more efficient at using resources in the body. And so you may before have developed a tolerance to a substance that you take, a medication that you take, something, and your body develops that level that you have to keep leveling up to be able to have an effective use of that particular substance. And what we saw with Restore is that Restore allowed small amounts of other supplements or other medications that people were on to be very much more effective. And people would use other supplements, or they would use small amounts of ingredients in Restore that were built into it and have outsized responses to that. And we discovered that as mitochondria come online, more of them and more efficiently, the potentiation of every process that occurs in the body was incredible. And so small amounts, this was part of the discovery of formulation, as you know. Tiny amounts of substances 100 or 1,000 times less than a typical dose were wildly effective. We even saw people, I guess you remember this, that had built up a tolerance to alcohol. And suddenly they can't drink very much because their liver was regenerating via this mitochondrial energy, and this tolerance they had built up was going away, and suddenly they're very sensitive to this. But it also increased the metabolism so that things coming into the body would be used incredibly quickly, and then the waste products would exit the body very quickly as well, almost as if you were incredibly young again. And so we saw this process happen that was almost astonishing with these ingredients that occurred because, as you know, and that's maybe a topic we can discuss as well, I was using very, very small quantities of each ingredient that were having tremendous effects in the formulations.
Yeah, couple things. First thing is, I have tried, and many people have tried, many of the ingredients that they see on our ingredient labels. But they don't get anywhere near the results they get from your finished product.
Right.
Talk a little bit about XDS 2.0.
Right. So XDS is Exponential Delivery System. It's what we've called it. And this is the way that I make the oil itself and structure the oil itself. There's two parts to it, and I've alluded to this earlier. Number one is the sets of ingredients working together to potentiate each other. Each ingredient potentiating one or two or five others, working together in a synergistic system to build up the effectiveness of the whole system. But number two is designing the structure of the oil itself with the ingredients themselves together so that it's delivered incredibly quickly to where it needs to go. It's not going to be effective unless it's broken down correctly in the digestive system, delivered to the bloodstream, and from the bloodstream into each cell, and from there to the place it needs to go into each cell very efficiently without breaking down itself into products that aren't going to be effective. So coming up with a system there of delivery that is going to, we called it exponential, because we're using such small amounts of each ingredient, but they're delivered incredibly effectively. And one thing I learned about formulation early on was that more is not necessarily better.
Exactly.
Your body has windows, levels of which are most effective for delivery. For example, even electromagnetic radiation. You can bombard somebody with incredibly high levels, and your body just won't take it in. But there's certain windows and microvolts of voltages that your body doesn't see it as harmful and will just take those signals right in. And it's the same thing, I believe, with ingredients, with food. You can have this lettuce over here that has super high levels of something and your body doesn't even notice it. And this has micro levels of these ingredients. Some people call today microdosing very important. And microdosing is a form of this, where you can get effects with much smaller amounts of ingredients. But I'm taking it much beyond the level of microdosing. Most people doing microdosing are a tenth, a 50th of an ingredient, and I'm generally an order of magnitude or two beyond that.
Well, let me tell you how I remember this. This is another we'll never forget moment, right? We're having this late night conversation. I'm on the bicycle at the rec center circling the track, and I'm talking to you about that lady who tried to start the fight with her husband and couldn't do it, right?
Right.
And I say, well, what did you put in that, right, and turn up that way with that XDS technology that made it have that effect? And you tell me, well, it was this and citrus oils and so forth. And then you told me how little you put in.
Yep.
I almost fall off the bicycle, right? Because I could compute. You're like, we only had in that first, four ingredients or something like that. You know, it goes to 32 in the next generation, 44 now, and you're going to do another one soon. But I'm at that moment, I'm calculating that if you did that little, now we can afford to make these really complex products, have all these effects, way more powerful and whatnot. Then I had to remind myself to pedal. Because I'm about to fall off. I'm going to fall over this one, right? Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. So you go to 2.0, and now you're touching gut. You know, you're touching, you know, the endocannabinoid system. You know, you got the PEA. You got all these things in there. And the first time I take 2.0, if it was about 5 or 6 o'clock, I better be close to a bathroom, okay? Because I got the most powerful urges. Here's what that reminds me of. I get a call from you one particular day, and you were saying that you weren't feeling well, and you thought you knew why. You know, this was at a point when we were growing a little bit in that original lab. Space was getting tight. These new machines were getting closer and closer to where you were sitting.
Yep.
Right? And you said that you prayed about it. And the answer you got back from God was that there was a better way or a different way to do this process that would not only work better, but you'd also feel better.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So the very fact that I was crammed into the space that I was and the proximity of these instruments, this equipment that I was using, ended up being the cause of what I was feeling. And the conditions that I was making Restore under were the wrong ones, I believed. And so when I became aware that it was the proximity of this that was causing the problems that I was feeling, I had a splitting headache that wouldn't go away, and I had this what felt like heartburn. I was just, my stomach was really hurting. I couldn't figure it out. I hadn't done anything differently, and so it was this proximity that was causing the problem. But I felt as if the problem was the conditions under which I was making this product, and I had to change them. And so I prayed about what to do and how to change this. And so then I changed it according to what I believed was going to be better. And within 5 minutes, all this went away.
Wow.
So sometimes accidents are really God stepping in and saying, make a change. This is something you need to be doing differently. And I feel like most of the process, I have to give credit where credit is due. I may be a scientist, but I'm not the architect of the universe. I'm not the creator of the universe, and I don't know off the bat how all this stuff works. I figure some stuff out, but I don't understand it completely. And so because of these so-called accidents, I see these. So as a result of some of these so-called accidents, you see the hand of God directing what it is that you're doing and making sure that you stay on the optimal path to do what you're supposed to do. And I can take credit for the things I've studied. I can take credit for things I've tried, but I can't take credit for the path that I've been put on and these occurrences to direct my path in the way that it should be in order to discover these things. So that was just one instance. But also, you're referring to people who had an effect for which, I'll say this over, you're referring to people who have had an effect on these products that we could not have anticipated. And that, I think, also is something we can't take credit for, ultimately. Because I didn't fully understand that even turning up mitochondria and helping all of these downstream conditions due to the increased cellular activity of the body, I anticipated that happening, but what I didn't anticipate was how comprehensive these effects would be in the body and how outsized they would be from a small amount of product. And I could not have seen that coming, especially when it comes to certain of these problems that people had, these calls that you got, and sometimes put me on the phone with some of these people. So I could not have anticipated that.
So as a result of that divine inspiration, I'll call it what it is as far as I'm concerned, we now have a new generation of XDS 2.0 products like Restore 1, 2, and 3 now, and the new Renew Brain and Body and Rejuvenate, which is our topical, right? But the miracles that have come after this now were just next level. I'll give you two of mine, and maybe you can give me some of yours. Anthony Scott, Washington, D.C., veteran, blown up in Iraq, 2003. Okay? The next 17 years, after having been physically restored, she still has no long-term or short-term memory. That's shot. Right. She got to write notes to let her tell her she got to write a note. You know, she got to take pictures when she's in the parking lot to remember where her car is.
Right.
Okay? All this stuff. But then Randy Howe, Marine veteran, who's also had a great result to us. Says, Antoinette, you need to try this. She does. The day she tries this, the day is the day her memory comes back. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Another memory, Henry Randy Nation once again. Jumps out of an airplane. It's 60 years ago. 60 years ago, KP jumps out of the airplane, shoots foul. He knows he's going to die, passes out before he hits the ground. And he's waking up wondering whether or not he's in heaven. And if he is, why does everything look the same? All right. Anyway, so he lives, but he has this deathly fear of planes. I said, KP, if you're coming out of your house, plane comes over, what would you do? He said, I might run back in the house and hide under the bed. That's how serious that panic was.
Right.
2.5 weeks later, same question. KP, you're coming out of your house right now, plane fire slides over. What do you do? He said, nothing. I just salute the plane and keep walking as an indication it has no control over me.
Right.
Okay. KP, what do other people see in you different than they did before? I was in the rec center the other day, and the lady who was at the desk was telling me, oh, you're different now. Okay, well, how were you different? Well, I'd be walking around looking down. He was like furtive, you know what I mean? He was more withdrawn, right? Yeah. Now he's outgoing and everything like that. He's an easier person to get along with.
Right.
I had another veteran tell me they got it out stuff. Now he doesn't cut his wife out anymore. Okay? So we got all of these ridiculous things. I mean, just to fast forward to now, this last week, a young lady with narcolepsy, since she was a teenager, falling asleep all the time. Nobody knew how to deal with that. Literally, Bevan, the day that she gets on Mito, she stays awake all day.
Wow.
You know?
For me, the most amazing testimonials are the unexplainable ones, as you're talking about, the ones we didn't anticipate, and particularly those that have to do with not only the emotional stability, but this brain-body connection, whether it's through the vagus nerve, whether it's through the gut-brain axis, whatever it has to do with, there are people with autism that are being helped. There are people with cerebral palsy who are physically different. There are people who could not speak very clearly because they can't negotiate what the brain is telling them to say, and they're speaking clearly. And of course, all of the emotional aspects. And I have to think that through this delivery system, through these ingredients, through the mitochondrial uptick, through the increased brain-body communication, through the nervous system, that there's a reset happening. There's a reset in the body happening where now the programs that ought to be happening correctly, whether it's in brain cells or whether it's in nerve cells or whether it's in gut cells, are all talking now, and they're all operating correctly, and they have the energy to do what they're supposed to do. And so there's this reverting to the correct program, as if you've taken out all of the lines of code of a computer program that are causing the program to misfire and not do what it's supposed to do. And all those are gone now, and now it's operational, and it's compiling correctly and running the program. It almost seems like that. It's somewhat mysterious. And so I really, really believe that if you address the core problem, which is allowing the body to get out of its own way and quit trying to solve problems and just run, ideally, then all of this other stuff just kind of reverses. And so we can't say that we're treating anything at all. We're letting the body heal itself so that it begins treating everything itself.
The way I say it is, we don't do conditions, we do mitochondria.
Right.
Okay? And it's not what Mito does, it's what your body does with Mito.
Right.
What we're doing is we're providing people with this nutritional toolkit, right, that you got the message from God about. And it so happens that the body already knows how to use it.
Right.
As you point out, right, it's all natural stuff.
Right.
And it's designed for the body to understand that it is food. You put some information in there too, okay? Yeah. So it really knows what you're talking about.
Right.
And man, it responds.
It does. It does. I think that the brain communicating with the rest of the body, obviously, if your head isn't giving the correct signals, then your body isn't going to respond. And so the actual brain-gut connection affects a lot of your emotions in ways people don't fully realize. You have more neurotransmitters in your gut than you do in your brain. And so there is this talking that has to occur. And then through your nervous system, from the brain to the rest of your body, that has to be optimally engaged as well through the vagus nerve and other nerves as well. And then you have the major organ systems that all have to come online as well. So this is a comprehensive thing. We can't treat all of these separate things, and we don't want to. But when you give your body the right food and the right signal to run the correct program, it says, okay, now I can do it. And seemingly that's what we're doing with this. And it's just been amazing to see.
Right. So it's 2021. We've pushed all our chips in the middle of the table. We have gone all in. Okay. It's make this work or bust. All right. And we start Moremito, as in more mitochondria, right? Because that's the deal.
Right.
That's what we do. And we start getting all these miracles that you point out there, stuff we could have never anticipated. Autistic children, people with ADHD, every condition you can name, because your body's already trying to address those. Now it can just address it better because all that mitochondria coming back is now giving it that new capability,
right?
More efficiency and everything. So here we are now, and we're ready now to take everything to another level. Like, one of the problems for me is, how do you describe something to somebody that no one's ever seen before? You know what I mean? Like, it took years to even figure out how to talk to people about this and let them know what it is, right?
Right.
But now we're producing the kind of videos and whatnot will be in our marketing system where all you got to do is press the button, okay?
Right.
And get that mitochondrial story told for you,
right?
Okay? It makes it so much easier.
Yes.
From your side, where do you see us going next?
Well, I think there's at least one more product that I want to add to the suite of products to fully flesh out all of the support mechanisms that are needed for mitochondria to be optimized. And that is a vitamins and minerals product, not just the typical vitamins and minerals product, but looking at all what I would call the mitochondrial cofactors. These are molecules, these are substances that each mitochondria uses and uses up that are necessary for the correct functioning. They can be very small ions of various types, up to and including some key vitamins, whether they're B vitamins or CoQ10 or things of that nature, which we already have in some of these other products. But really emphasizing and optimizing those particular cofactors, again, not in huge amounts, as other multivitamins or supplements like that would be, but in the correct amounts relative to one another, to really have that final piece and optimize what mitochondria use every day. There are additives sometimes that you might add to your car's engine that are absolutely necessary for lubricity or for really good functioning. And so these would just be the final tuning of those sort of functionalities. In addition to that, I'm working on Restore 4.0, which is going to enhance some of these particular ingredients that are already being used. It will add some more, and it will work to optimize the XDS system even more. So I intend to turn up the functionality of Restore. Also, to do the same thing with Pet Life for pets, because we have to talk about the effect that some people may say, well, this is all in your head. You know, this is snake oil. This is just a thought that you have that it might be working, a belief that you have. This is what they call the placebo effect, right? The interesting thing is that with animals, there is no placebo effect. And we've had remarkable effects with animals with our Pet Life version of the Restore oil. And so I don't want to leave out pets. Pets are incredibly important for many people. They're their companions, they're their children, they're very special to them, and they enhance their standard of living, their way of life. And so we don't want to leave them out either. And so what I am doing with Restore 4.0, I want to do to take Pet Life from 2.0 to 3.0 as well. So that's something that I'm actively working on. And so enhancing the current products, adding that final product to the suite of products we have. And then what I really need to do is, at that point, go back to the lab, because I have unanswered questions about some of the ways in which Restore is actually working. And I believe that there are certain enhancements I know how to make, and then there are certain enhancements I don't know how to make yet. And so I want to go back to the grindstone. I want to go back to where it began, and I want to start looking at, again, the origins of XDS. I want to look at how this can be enhanced. I want to look at some of those conditions under which I was operating when I got the headache, when I got the bad feeling because it wasn't quite optimal. And I want to go back there to the fundamental science, whether it's chemical science or whether it's electromagnetism. And I want to go back and I want to enhance the process. I want to understand it. I want to understand if I turn this knob, what happens? If I turn that knob, what happens? Yeah. And so I want to go back and do the fundamental research so that I can not only enhance these products, but I can skip ahead to the next generation of products, which I don't know what they should be right now, but I will know once I do that work. And so that's what I want to do in the lab after I work on the current generation of enhancements.
Wow, Bevan. That sounds like the company I'd like to be involved with. That's a great place for us to call it a day.
Yeah. It's great working with you. Hi, I'm Dr. Bevan Elliott. I have a background in physics, in physical chemistry, in material science. I've dabbled around in biology and have settled in doing research in both chemistry and physics with electromagnetism, but primarily now in formulation of high-tech and nutraceutical formulation for Moremito. I have a very deep connection to research and development, and most of my career has been in fundamental research. Lately, I've been in applied research, particularly with respect to mitochondrial health and the use of various means in formulation from electromagnetism through to chemical formulation effects in order to enhance delivery systems in biological systems. I'm the Director of Research and Development of Moremito, and I work together with Roger Hill.
So hard, they're at the top of their game. We're about to make sure you know our names. Adonis Finest, the podcast, oh so fly. We stay on our grind, aiming high like diamonds. We shine, inspiring the master, motivation and elevation. Breaking down all classes, teaching region. We can show you never fall with a helping hand. We rise from the crawl, from the bottom to the top. Never be stopped. Say no to doubt, say no to fear. Pushing boundaries, making it clear. You've got the power, you're a pioneer. Unstoppable.